Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking with Dr. Howard Purcell on disruptive technology, changing the face of optometry through an altered educational process on this episode of the OI Show. Well, thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Optometric Insights. I'm excited to have our friend Dr. Howard Purcell. Howard kind of catapulted me into the optometry world as far as industry and understanding how industry works about 15, 16 years ago that was, and has just been a huge advocate for KOLs and learning about how industry works, and is also within the contact lens industry. And I think that's how we originally started to meet. As many of you know, Howard is the president and CEO of the New England College of Optometry, which is kind of a separate and a new iteration, not so new anymore, being 2.5, 3 years into it. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode, Howard. I appreciate having you on the OI Show.
I'm honored to be here, Dave. It's nice to switch things around a little bit. It used to be me interviewing you. Now I get a chance to be on the other side of it. You know, people have said a lot of things about me in my career. One thing I think I've been decent at is identifying talent. And the first time I met you, seeing you still in school or maybe in your last year of school, we knew there were great things ahead. And congratulations on the great things that you've been able to do in your career.
Thank you, my man. So I wanted to see if you could kind of share, you know, a lot of people that are listening are thinking about what are we going to do with our career? You know, they may be in the first 10, 15 years of practice. And as you've shown is that there's many different avenues of practice and ways we can be within optometry. So can you kind of walk us through fourth year Howard Purcell thinking about what's my life going to be, and then fast forward to where you are today and share with us how you got here, and did you ever consider the journey you would go through with optometry?
Well, I'll answer the last question first. No way. I mean, I never imagined being in the role I'm in now. I mean, I feel blessed and honored to be here, but no, I never imagined. And I think if there's a lesson I've learned in my career now, having graduated in 1984, a few years ago, don't be afraid to try different things. You know, I never was able to check every box for the roles that I had. I didn't have every qualification that was needed. I had the drive, the desire. I wanted to learn, and I put myself in positions to, you know, take a little bit of a risk. And if there's a learning from that, I would encourage everybody who's listening. I know you tend to get a little younger audience, and I would just say, you know, be bold, try things, put yourself in a position to succeed. You may not have every skill set you need to do it, but I've certainly learned along the way that you're going to get a chance to do some things that you might not otherwise have had a chance to do. So for me, I've just had a wonderful opportunity to see optometry from so many different perspectives. And, you know, the short version of the story is, when I finally did go to optometry school, which, by the way, if you back up a little from that, I wasn't even going to go to college. I'm a drummer. That was what I was going to do. I was going to be a rock star. And like a lot of other people, I'm sure, fortunately, I had a father who's also an optometrist, also a NECO grad, who said, you know, you can always play your drums, but maybe you should have a career. Thank goodness for our parents' wise advice along the way. And I wound up deciding, once I made the decision I was going to college, it was optometry. I knew I wanted to do it. I'd seen my father just love going to work, enjoy what he did every day. He actually never really said, you need to be an optometrist, or I really want to encourage you to be an optometrist, but he didn't have to. And I hear it every day when I have a chance to meet the future of our profession. It's been one of us who has inspired them in almost every case. They've seen what we do. They've seen how we do it. They see how we enjoy what we do. And say what you will about optometry. I mean, like every profession, it has its pros and cons. But you know what? Most of us really love what we do. And that's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, I had this wonderful opportunity to see a practice ahead of me, a 35-year-old practice at that point that my father had built. Not too shabby. You walk out the back door, you're on the beach. You know, it was a pretty easy transition. This was
in Miami, or this was in
right. So
Florida,
this is in South Florida. I grew up in Miami Beach. Dad's from Brooklyn, mom's from Philly. I'm a Northeast kid, but Dad, after he graduated from optometry school, moved down to South Florida, met my mom, and that's where I was born. So my dad had built this amazing practice. I would have been nuts not to participate in it. So, you know, graduated was pretty clear. I was going back to South Florida. Joining my father's practice. I didn't owe a dime when I got out of optometry school, thanks to my father. So I gave him 10 years of sweat and blood as a result of it, but that's okay. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Honestly, I learned a lot about the business of optometry from my father, who taught himself slit lamp and taught himself BIO and taught himself, how to use so many of the instruments that he didn't learn about in school. So it was really fun. I was helping him to learn some of the new technologies. He was teaching me the basics, how do you run a business? And that knowledge that I gained during that period has served me well throughout. So the interesting thing, an optometry school opened up in South Florida, what is now Nova Southeastern, used to be Southeastern University. And they were literally within 6-7 miles of my office. So they invited a group of people to be part of an advisory panel. Anyway, long story short, I was the complainer of the advisory panel. I didn't agree with anything they were doing. You know me, Dave. I speak up when I don't agree with something, and I didn't agree with it. They were doing things I didn't like. And so about 4 or 5 meetings in, I'll never forget this, the dean says to me, I'd like to talk to you if you don't mind. I thought, all right, that's it. I'm gone. And he offers me a job. It's like, I like your spirit. I like that you speak up. Another good lesson I've learned in my career. Be honest. If you like something, say it. If you don't. Don't worry about what everybody else is saying. And, in this case, it worked out extremely well for me. I wound up, joining the faculty at Nova Southeastern, which is the only real academic experience I had, and staying there for 5 years. I was chief of cornea and contact lenses, loved every minute of it, and thought that was how I was going to spend my career. Got a call one day out of the blue from a guy named Stan Yamani, who who said, hey, would you be interested in joining Johnson & Johnson? And I really remember this vividly because I was very young in my career at the time, just building my career. And I started giving him names of other people I work with that I thought would be great for it. I really didn't see myself in the role at all. And then, how spouses sometimes can be smarter than us. I went home that night and said, hey, I got a call from J&J about an opportunity. And I told him I really wasn't interested. And my wife said, I don't know if I could say this on your show, but I'll clean it up. She said something to the effect of, are you crazy? But it was a little different than are you crazy? And so thank goodness I went back and just looked at it. Let's see. And I went up to Jacksonville and met the people, and it was wonderful. Everyone I work with at Nova, they said, if you hate it, your job's still here. My father, who I was actually leaving his practice to, said, come on and do it and see if you like it. And I spent 13 and a half years at J&J, loved every minute of it, learned every single day, worked around a group of people that were so smart. And literally, I would go home at night and look up things like EBITDA and terms I was hearing for the first time back then. I didn't even know what they were. But I learned, and I built myself to a position where I felt a lot more comfortable with it. Yeah. And I enjoyed that very much. An opportunity then came up at Essilor, where I was going to be part of the board, the first optometrist Essilor would ever have on their board and their leadership team. It was an exciting opportunity for me, but I did feel like I was going from contact lenses, which were super sexy and cool, at least at the time when I was a practitioner, early in my practitioner days, it was cool to be a contact lens person. It still is. And so I was really engaged in that. I was a little worried, spectacle lenses. I don't know if I can get myself as excited, but it's a really big opportunity. Took advantage of the opportunity, saw what was going on in spectacle lenses, and loved the global nature of the role. I was able to travel around the world, do so much, and hopefully do some good things for optometry, as I always saw my role as representing my colleagues on the side of the industry. And we need people like that, Dave. You know this. I hope some of our colleagues, some of our young colleagues in particular, when they look at all of the options they have in their career, I hope they will consider at least some time in industry. We need optometrists there. So many who have come before us have laid the groundwork. I mean, early in the day, we were figureheads. Oh, we got to have an optometrist. It just looks good. You know better than that today. The optometrists working in industry, and you've participated in some of it. I mean, we are valuable assets, and so much hard work has been done to get us there. I just hope some of our young colleagues will consider it. So went to Essilor, loving Essilor, was going to retire at Essilor. When I tell this story, it sounds like I can't keep a job. But anyway, no, it's been great. I feel blessed, but when you tell it that way, like I moved to here. Anyway, went over to Essilor, wouldn't have left there, but met a guy named John Carrier, who to me is one of the great leaders we have in this industry. Learned so much from John, enjoyed it there a lot, and went through a lot of stuff. You know, when you're in industry, you see a lot of things. You have to wear two hats. You have to wear your optometry hat and you have to wear your corporate hat. Yeah. And sometimes they can be in conflict. So we need good optometrists making good decisions in industry. It's so critical. How do I wind up here? The last part of the story, very quickly, I'll try to make it quick. It was just a matter of being on the board. I was invited to be on the board of my institution where I graduated. I'm a second-gen graduate of this amazing place, and
Yeah.
it's always held a very important part in my life and our family, everything. And so when I was invited to be part of the board, I was thrilled, and served on the board for about a year. And that's when Scotty, who had been here for 50 years, 50, and president for 9, announced that he was stepping down. Still had no concept I would even throw my name in the hat. It was formed a subcommittee. They drafted the new job description for what they thought the president of NECO should be.
Yeah.
I read the job description. I read it a second and third time. And basically what I heard was me. I mean, everything they were describing in there of the person they were looking for, I felt like I could bring something to the table.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't bring to the table is a lot of academic experience. So right from the beginning, you'll love this, Dave. Right from the beginning was, Purcell, you're kind of a square peg in a round hole for this job. Like, yeah, I get it. That's fine. I want to see the process. At the very least, I love my college. I want to be on the board. Let's see the process. The process passes, and now it's down to 3 people. And so now it's starting to get real. Hadn't told my kids. My wife was obviously aware, but I hadn't really made a big deal of it because I just thought it was a long shot. And I'll never forget the last question the group asks me. We've got this, group of the board members around the table. So Dr. Purcell, thank you for everything you've done. How are you going to round out that square peg and help it fit in the round hole? And I do have to say, before I tell you what I said, well, I had a great job. If this didn't work out, it was okay. Very happy to retire as an Essilor employee. So I said, if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your guy. And I look around the room. I remember calling my wife afterwards and saying, don't worry, we're not moving to Boston. We're good. This is out. And then, the last part of the story I'll just share because it's a special story for me. I'm in Paris and I see the phone ring at, working with Essilor in Paris, or French company.
Essilor's in Paris. Yep.
Exactly. And I see the phone ring. So I walk outside and I'm literally, Dave, looking at the, Eiffel Tower. Yeah. Eiffel Tower right in front of me. And I hear someone say something to my ear that I never expected to hear. And, we'd like you to be the 13th president of New England College of Optometry.
Wow.
It was emotional for me. My dad passed away a couple of years ago. And so I know that he would have been very proud. But I could not be any more proud to represent my institution. And let me tell you, and you know this, the future of this profession is in great hands. Say what you will about optometry, et cetera. I get to spend my entire days. If any of your listeners ever have a bad day and want to brighten themselves up a little bit about optometry, spend a day with people that this is their dream. Yeah. It's what they've wanted their whole life. They're reaching the pinnacle of it. And they get me fired up every single day. And it doesn't take a lot to get me fired up, but they get me fired up every single day. I feel like I was meant to be here. I was meant to be here during this time. I don't bring everything. I don't bring that long history of academia. But I have an incredible dean, Eric Weisberg, who's been part of NECO since he graduated. Yep. He knows everything about the academic world. He's a great dean, doing a fantastic job. And I feel like between the two of us, the experience he brings to the table and perhaps the outward experience that I've had, I would like to think is going to be a positive thing for the college.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say you haven't stayed at one job for a long time, but more than most people would stay at a job, in
today's day. Right. I mean, 13 years, 13 years, 11 years.
Yeah. So it is quite a while, and you've just given to our profession. Let's talk about that square peg that you are. One of the things that I've appreciated you is you're always trying to mold and to change and to recreate and to create something in a new way. And so, we've already seen this in your view of what optometric education is looking out at for the future. I'm sure that was probably one of your thoughts is, well, I'm going to square that, or take that round hole and I'm going to make it square. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you. If I was smarter, that's what I would have said, Dave. If I would have thought faster. You're right. Exactly.
So how do you see, the education that we have today, which, admittedly is incredible compared to my grandfather, your father, you,
Absolutely.
Me, education has improved so many ways. Where do you see that going in the future, and how are you looking to kind of lead that charge?
Yeah. So first of all, I look at it through a very different set of eyes here, and I want to acknowledge that right away. I respect my colleagues in ASCO. They have dedicated, most of them, the majority of their career to academia. We need that. It's incredibly special. But I do come at it from a little different perspective. So I would say two things. First of all, and I will answer your question. Number one, we have incredible faculty at all the schools and colleges. I don't think as a practitioner, as an industry person, I really appreciated the job we place on our faculty today. I admire them so much. Think about it. My dad was in school in the late 50s. It was a 4-year program. It's a 4-year program today. And you know the evolution, thank goodness, that the scope of practice that has broadened so much. Finally, we've got glaucoma in Massachusetts. Yay! So, we progress every day.
Bring that perspective. My grandfather was in school in the 50s, and there was no diagnostics, no therapeutics, there was no glaucoma. There was, my grandfather eventually bought this fancy machine that could take the pressure of a patient's eye, and we look back at where it's been. You bring this point, and I think we often overlook that it was a 4-year program.
Right.
And it's still a 4-year program.
And the pressures that are placed on our faculty that just do an amazing job, particularly during this pandemic. I would encourage all of you, if you know someone who is a faculty member at one of the schools and they're a friend of yours, reach out and say hello. It's been a really tough go for them. I know it's been a tough go for everybody. But to continue to keep students motivated through this, to keep yourself motivated, to manage what you've got going on at home. It's really impressive. And it inspires me to see the dedication. And that's just not at NECO. That's at the 23 schools and colleges in North America. I mean, we really should be proud of what happens there. Now, we can be critical too. And I was critical before I came inside. And what I will tell you is that once you come inside, you really see it from a very different perspective. But let me try to answer your question. Number one, we have to create better partnerships with industry. We will not achieve the goals we have as an academic world in optometry if we don't find ways to continue to partner with our industry partners. They have a lot at stake here. If I knew what I knew now, Dave, about academia when I was in industry, I would have been a much better partner. I'd like to think I was a decent partner already, but I would have been a much better partner to have that insight. So we need to open up the hood, show what's going on. And we've created some environments to do that. And it's been incredibly positive. So on one hand, I think we have to really look at and not be afraid. I'm not telling you that we should name schools after industry. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is there are ways to partner that both are going to benefit, but does not intrude on the academic curriculum or intrude on the way we train our students. But that partnership is so important. And I can only imagine if you talk to any of my colleagues who sit where I do, they would say the same thing. We're all trying to continue to build those relationships. But let's talk about a couple really key things, Dave. One is the cost of education. We have to make an impact on the cost of education. We want to continue to increase the salaries of our people who work because they're making less money. Our faculty as optometrists could make more money going out and working than they are working here. And the people who work in academia because they want to, not because they have to, because they love it, because they love seeing people learn. And that's what gets them excited. When a student comes back and says, "Thank you, Dr. Kading, for what you did for me. Look how successful I am." That's what they live for. That's what we all live for. And it's wonderful to be around a group of people like that. And we want to continue rewarding them with salaries. But I'll just give you an example. And it's a fictitious example. But let's say salaries are increasing 3 to 4% a year, right? Any good business person knows that your revenue side better be increasing at least 3 to 4% a year. Otherwise, you don't have a good business. If we just make it as simple as we can do. We cannot continue to raise tuition 3, 4, 5% a year in optometry. We will price ourselves out of the game. So we have to look for ways, and I think industry is part of it, to begin to look at this continued increase in the cost of optometric education. It's not sustainable. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think we really have to look at the way we deliver. What we've noticed during this pandemic is that issues around mental health are very significant. Issues around special compensation for people who need more time to take tests, et cetera. And we want to be sensitive to these things. So we have to find ways to deliver. I will tell you, and this may surprise you or may not, Dave, you're pretty tied in here, but students don't go to class. Harvard Medical School, right across the way here, right? 2 people in class. One's the note taker, and the other is someone just decided they had nothing better to do that day. I'm being a little facetious, but this is not limited to optometry. This is Harvard Medical School has the same issue. Students aren't coming to class. Why? We provide them with class notes. We provide them with a videotape. We provide them with whatever additional information they need, and they can fast forward it, slow it down. Different people learn different ways. We have traditionally said, come to the classroom, sit in the classroom, learn, and then we're going to put you in a clinic and then learn there, and then we'll send you out to do what you do. Yeah. I don't believe that's the long-term model. I think we have to create more flexibility in education, and we've learned this since we've gone through and are still going through this incredible pandemic time. But there's always a silver lining, Dave, and the silver lining is what we learned during this period. I think, we have roughly 2,600 or so applicants to optometry school for about 1,300 spots. We should have 5,000 applicants to optometry school. It's ridiculous. So we need to make sure we can provide a broader opportunity. As an example, if you have a family, but you've been interested in wanting to go do something medical and optometry appeals to you, why can't we reach out to people in rural areas? Maybe not make them travel to our institution and expend the cost of that. There's a cohort that wants to do that. The new grad, that's great. But can we go after a different subset if we can be a little more flexible in the way we deliver our education? I think that's a key to where we're going. We can't just continue. We're seeing, right now I hear about 4 new optometry schools opening up. And I know everybody has their opinion about good, bad, whatever. Yeah. But the bottom line is, if we don't continue to increase the pool and the quality and diversity of the pool, we're going to have a big problem. And I think part of that is offering people different ways to be educated. I am not suggesting an online OD degree. What I am suggesting, though, is that a hybrid might be able to work. And we might be able to reach people who are at different stages of their life, who perhaps live in more rural areas, who are perhaps more diverse, and offer them an opportunity to be optometrists, but in a different way. So I think bottom line, we need to be more flexible with the education. There's so much to learn, but I think we can be flexible in the way we deliver it and not be quite so rigid. And I have to admit, when I even suggest these kinds of things, the traditionalists have a real tough time with it. It's like, oh, really? So we're going to write on the back of a matchbox, and for age group of yours and younger, you may not know what that is, but you used to be able to get a degree on a matchbox, right? And so people associated with that. I think we have to be careful of that. And we have to look at being more flexible. People learn differently, Dave, and we've assumed historically everyone learns the same. I want 5,000 people to apply to optometry school. I want them to be diverse. I want them to be excited about the profession. We have to be a little more, my opinion, we have to be a little more flexible in the way we're delivering education. And I think there are people out there trying to think through that and be more flexible. And by the way, think about this for a minute. One last piece. Think about how we could deliver that education. As an example, we have incredible expertise here at NECO, but there is some expertise that lives elsewhere that we could tap into. So ultimately, you could be getting the best of the best in every specific subject area to support your faculty, to provide education, and they can do it in a way that doesn't require them to necessarily get on a plane, fly to Boston all the time. So I think this has taught us, and I hope we learned from it, that we can do things in different ways and be equally as effective, because I think we have been effective in what we've been able to do through this pandemic. I think we can be equally effective, but in order to really see the growth, we have to be bold. We have to adjust, adapt, try new things. And I can assure you here at NECO, that's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Well, what I appreciate about what you're saying is, I think traditionally, medicine has been 5 or 10 years behind what patients are wanting or desiring. And, I'm not an advocate yet, but I know someday it'll be that a patient will get an eye exam way different than they're getting an eye exam today. I mean, we're seeing different glimpses of what that could be. The pandemic brought telemedicine to our view, and people that would have never thought of using telemedicine and now have all different opinions, which we all do. But I mean, that's going to be far more of a mainstream, everyday sort of thing.
No question.
In the future. And so as we look at how patients are going to be desiring to get eye care, we need doctors that are similar to that. And so we need to be teaching towards the future of who the profession needs to be for the patients and the way that they're getting it. So that's what I appreciate about looking outside of how we're doing it now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you, but I will tell you that, thinking a little differently, trying to do things a little differently, this is a very traditional profession. And it can be hard sometimes to make that happen. Look, we've got virtual reality, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, telehealth. These things are changing our world. To think they're not going to change optometry would be really kidding ourselves. So let's be part of the process. Let's evaluate, let's validate, and let's start, in our institution, the heaviest use, and we're using telehealth quite a bit, the heaviest use, and we used it before the pandemic, is in vision therapy and low vision. Yeah. Why? Couple reasons. One, we validated the technology. Number two, the risk is low. Yeah. I believe these people are getting comprehensive eye exams. They're getting their follow-ups and some of their therapy sessions. And by the way, you think about low vision, you could argue you could do better. Think about that. Low vision patient comes to your practice, they get a device. Wouldn't you love to see them using that device at home in their own environments where it just totally makes sense. So let's start with the stuff that I don't want to say is easy, but that makes sense, that lowers our risk. Let's get comfortable with the technology. Let's see what it can or can't do. But to draw these very firm demarcation, like the only telehealth we're going to approve is if it is exactly equal to a live visit, I think it limits us. I think we have to be careful. I'd rather see us say, let's do it in some areas that aren't, let's not start treating glaucoma tomorrow with telehealth, right? Let's not look at, someone who has symptoms of floaters and flashes through telehealth as the only vehicle. Let's start with the things that, and I'll probably get some criticism for this, but I will say it, have lower risk. You've evaluated that low vision patient. They've been in your office. You want them to come back 3 or 4 more times. This is a hardship for that patient. Find different ways. That kid who's at home, you're bringing in for therapy 3 times a week, let them do their therapy at home and you can engage, you can watch. These are the easy, and again, I want to caveat comparatively, these are the easier things. Let's start there. Let's all feel more comfortable with it. And then we can ratchet up. I just feel uncomfortable when someone comes to us and says, we've got a great telehealth platform. It does everything, comprehensive eye exam, the works. That's great, but I'm going to be very critical of that and ask a lot of questions. I want to see how this is validated. Come to me and say, let's test this in low vision and vision therapy. I'm ready to go now. Let's work with it. Let's start to get more and more comfortable. I will tell you, in our clinic, it has added another 25 to 30% of visits we're able to do because our sessions are filled, but now we are able to add the telehealth component. So to me, that's huge. Artificial intelligence, you're using it every day now, and it's only become more a part of it. We should embrace it. It's not here to replace us. It's here to be an adjunct to us.
Right. Yeah. Computers didn't replace us. We just are able to reach further beyond with the computer. And why are we thinking artificial intelligence is going to do
and maybe a good way to end this conversation, and you've heard this part of the conversation, you've heard me say this before. I remember my father saying when he got his first auto refractor, that's it. It's time to shut down. Because that's what they did. They were expert refractionists. Yeah. By the way, when progressives came out, that was huge. Like when now it's 60 years ago, the first, progressive lens from Essilor, that was huge, right? So they were perfectionists when it came to refraction, and the evolution has just changed things so much. And even back then, though, when they saw a piece of technology, it's like, oh my God, this thing, in the snap of a finger produces a prescription. Pretty soon you won't need me anymore. Today, you're hard pressed to find a practice that doesn't have an autorefractor. And I would say to you, if we carefully navigate through artificial intelligence, virtual reality, 3D printing, telehealth, it will be the same thing. We will evolve into it, and we won't let it take us over. What makes us human is, at least in our lifetime, not going to be able to be replicated by a computer or a bot. And so we should embrace these things. I think it's really important.
I agree with you. And, I think that at every point during our profession, we've had technology or some sort of innovation that has come in that has always brought about a fear that it would, significantly reduce the number of optometrists that are needed, or it would, reduce our income or whatever. And so some of those things are legitimate, but things like the autorefractor, things like LASIK surgery, online contact lenses, purchasing your glasses online, we've never seen a decline in the number of optometrists that have been needed. It's always gone up. And why would we think that technology is going to affect us in any other way, right?
No, you're right. I remember when I was working at J&J and someone called me to say, what are you going to do when you guys shut down the contact lens division because refractive surgery, and the answer to this, it actually helped contact lenses. Refractive surgeons were bringing 100 people into a room for a lecture. Maybe 10 of them got the procedure, 15 of them, if they were really lucky. You got 85 people in the room who are looking for something different. And when daily disposables came out, we were able to really make something positive out of it. So I just think there's always ways that we can do this. But I will tell you, if you're a student at NECO, you are going to be exposed to disruptive technology. I personally, and my team believes that you shouldn't graduate and for the first time now see things that are disrupting our profession. You should see them early in your career, have a chance to look at them, adapt them, understand the value they may bring, whatever filter you use to decide what is the right thing for you. But I believe it's important, whether I think it's great, terrible, the next, wonderful innovation, I believe, and our team here believes, that our students should be exposed to it. And I will tell you, they ask amazing questions. When we brought the first telehealth group in here, our students were asking better questions than we were. It's, they don't have the inhibitions. They don't have all the history. So they ask just very direct questions. So if you're a student at NECO, you are going to be exposed to technologies you may love, you may not love. You're going to hear from people. I remember I invited Neil Blumenthal from Warby to come in here, and the students were enamored. They loved it. They listened attentively. They learned. And I got a few notes from people. How dare you allow someone like that to come to your campus? Now, we should hide this from our students so our students don't really know the world they're going to enter. And by the way, Warby now hiring optometrists, putting in full exam lanes. I mean, you could argue and never would have thought they would ever do that, right? So, having an influence, talking to people, engaging, we have to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
We have to be engaged in the discussions, whether it's what we talked about before in terms of telehealth or whether it's, what's going on with optometry. We have to have a seat at the table. And that gets me back to being present in industry, being present in academia, people like you. And I love that you guys do this. You and Milay, you're interested in being around the academic world. You want to help our students. And I love that. I respect our colleagues who are willing to give some of their time to help the future of this profession. And so many of them do. And I salute you and others for doing that. We need it. And I believe that in the future, we'll be able to tap into you more because we'll be using a little more remote type of educating. So we can tap into the best of the best around the world and educate our students to the highest level possible. It's really exciting when you think about it that way. Yeah,
it is. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Purcell, for joining us for this episode. We sure appreciate your insights. And as we're looking at what the future is, we're going to be definitely keeping our eye on you to help lead the way for the profession. I know that you are, amongst other giants in our profession helping lead the way. So if you have not already, make sure to subscribe, like, and leave comments about what you learned today and any other things that you would like to learn on the Optometric Insight Show. And thank you again for joining us. Stay tuned for more episodes next time.